I remember the road, the fear in my chest, the sound of my own footsteps in the dark. I remember the faces, some I never saw again. I was young, alone, and moving south, always south. Back then in 1996, I was just another immigrant. I'm Jamal Osman. Welcome to my journalism toolkit. High quality content is not free to produce. Become a paid subscriber. I have been a Londoner for most of my life. When I first arrived, I had nothing. No home, no money, no certainty about tomorrow. But I quickly settled in with a job, a family, a new life. I'm not alone. Thousands come here every year for the same reason. London is a great place, especially after fleeing a brutal civil war. But as the immigration debate rages on, I wanted to add my voice to that debate, not to shout louder than the rest, but to share something that often gets lost in the noise, the why. And to show the risks we take to come to places like Britain. This was about helping the public understand the reality behind the headlines, not statistics, not stereotypes, but the real people with real lives making impossible choices. In this story, I was both the reporter and a character. I was revisiting the path I took as a frightened teenager, and along the way, met others walking the same road I once had. Somalis love to chat over a cup of sugared tea. In cafes like this up and down the country, we share stories about home. But the one thing we never talk about is how we all got here. Now, it was time to tell my story, to retrace the journey I had made years before, penniless, afraid, slipping across borders, always looking over my shoulders, dependent on the kindness of strangers. I am an immigrant. I am a refugee. I am an asylum seeker. I wanted to say those words out loud because they are the labels given to us by our host countries. They reduce us to numbers in media headlines and policy papers. But behind each label is a name, a face, a life. To them, I might have been just another statistic, but I am and always will be Jamal Muhammad Osman. I was in my teens when I left for South Africa. Like thousands of others, Kenya was our meeting point. I had survived horrors no child should see, including a massacre. And there was no hope left. Hope is not just a feeling. Hope is oxygen for the soul. It keeps you patient. It makes you endure the waiting. It helps you believe that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow will be better than today. Without hope, every day feels like a dead end. You stop imagining a future, and when you can't see a future, you have to go and look for one elsewhere. Getting to Nairobi wasn't hard. My cousin gave me a place to stay. My cousin said to me, "Why are you going so far? Why don't you stay here?" He tried to convince me to become a mechanic. But I knew I wouldn't be any good at it. More importantly, I knew that staying meant no safety, no change, no chance. When you have nothing to lose, you just go. For many African migrants, South Africa was and still is a destination of hope. Asylum is almost guaranteed, and there is always the possibility of moving on to Europe or America. Nairobi was at the center of the smuggling trade. Back then, prices were high. Now, they are even much higher. And South Africa is the best?
The best in Africa.
In a cramped hotel room, I met a group of Ethiopians. They had each paid £1,500, everything they had for a chance at a new life. It's me. When I was younger than you, I did the same journey like you. When I showed them an old photo of myself, they stared in disbelief.
Yes, I want like this idea.
Like you in
More than this.
They told me their dreams to be doctors, engineers, journalists. In the next room, I met two women, Fatika and Tatsu. Tatsu had left 6 children behind in Ethiopia. Her husband was already in South Africa. If all went well, the children would join them later. That night, the smugglers moved them onto a local bus, waiting until the right officials, the ones they could pay, were on duty at the border. The women looked anxious. On these roads, they had good reason to be. We planned to meet in Tanzania, but just before midnight, the call came. They had been arrested and sent back to Kenya. Dreams can collapse that quickly. Tanzania was notorious for cracking down on migrants. Checkpoints were everywhere. The road to Dar es Salaam was the same one I had taken years earlier, and it brought back every feeling of fear and loneliness from 1996. One of my biggest worries back then was dying on the road, with my family never knowing what had happened to me. No phones, no way to send a word. If you disappeared forever. Dar es Salaam was East Africa's second biggest transit point, but many migrants became stranded there. I found a group of Somalis watching a Premier League match. Some had been caught and sent back so many times that they were losing hope. One man, Mohammed, warned others about South Africa. His own brother had been murdered in Cape Town. They didn't listen. I headed towards the Mozambique border, as remote now as it had been then. In 1996, I had stood on that same beach halfway to South Africa and felt utterly alone. The further I had gone from home, the loneliness became more real. In Mtwara, with no one to speak to, the silence pressed in. By that point in my journey, I was out of money and almost out of hope. In such a remote area, foreigners stood out. As a migrant, you felt exposed and vulnerable. Border officials often abandoned people. Many drowned. Some were taken by crocodiles.
We just arrived in Mozambique.
We had to move quickly. The last vehicle of the day was leaving the river. Everyone was scrambling for space. I forced myself into a spot that barely existed. On the road ahead, there were dangers. Bandits who preyed on new arrivals, isolated stretches where no help could come. We made it to Nampula, a small city with a tight-knit immigrant community, many of them stuck in limbo. One young woman, Aziza from Congo, had been offered resettlement in America, but before she could leave, she fell in love. Her fiancé, Girma, was from Ethiopia. At first, they spoke only through a translator.
When you met, so you were talking through a translator?
Yeah, translator.
So how did you tell you love her? How did you tell? How did you tell? Which language did you tell you love her?
English.
English?
Yeah.
It was a reminder that even in the harshest places, life finds a way to interrupt with something human. Every night in Maputo, there were still those who dared, ready to make the final push into South Africa. Tension hung in the air as they made last phone calls to loved ones. Then the order came, all phones off. In the darkness, they moved on foot. A whistle meant danger. Everyone dropped to the ground. Another signal, and they rose again. On average, 100 people made this crossing each night. The rocky terrain cut into their feet, but at last they reached the border fence. That night, we wished them well and came back to Maputo. The next morning, I got the message they had made it. So I crossed from the regular border post to meet them.
Assalamu alaikum.
How you doing?
Fear gave way to laughter.
Yeah.
They even joked about their terrible choice of shoes. For a migrant, South Africa has one great advantage. Once inside, you could become illegal quickly, find work, start a life. I was on my way to see a Somali man who had helped me when I first arrived, Mahmoud. He had opened his home to me, fed me, given me a place to breathe. Years later, he was still doing the same for new arrivals. Johannesburg was my first stop, but Cape Town was where I got my first regular job. 30 kilometers from the city center, standing outside a supermarket selling crisps or chips.
You just run towards them and say, crisp, 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 crisp. One run chips, one run chips, one run.
I stayed there for nearly 2 years. Many things happened before I finally decided to leave for Europe to seek asylum and learn the bittersweet meaning of the word refugee. It all happened so long ago, yet so little has changed. Somalia was and still is at war. Young men and women are still risking everything to leave. When you don't feel safe in your own country, when you have no food, no work, no future, you think, I have to try somewhere else. I consider myself a lucky man, but luck doesn't erase longing. Home is home. You miss your family, your childhood streets. The people who shaped you. No one truly wants to leave. Circumstances push you out, and the journey begins. If you like this story, share it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.